If you look at modern pop culture or viral propaganda films, you'll see a very specific narrative being pushed, that a true practicing Hindu is inherently a pure vegetarian. But this pie chart, based on extensive Pew Research data, tells a completely different story. It shows that 56% of Hindus, well over half the population, are actually non-vegetarian. And if we look past that top-line number into traditionally pure upper castes, the trend holds. 45% of Brahmins also regularly consume meat. If hard demographic data proves that meat eating is overwhelmingly normal across the board, where exactly did the myth of the strictly vegetarian Hindu originate? The idea that strict vegetarianism is the sole baseline of Hindu religious identity is a manufactured modern construct, one that completely contradicts the demographic reality of the country. We can trace meat consumption back to the foundational texts. In the Mahabharata, there is a specific account where Yudhishthira laments that he and his brothers had hunted so many deer for food that the forest population was actually depleting. The Ramayana contains similar accounts. Swami Vivekananda highlighted a passage where Sita vows to offer river goddess Ganga meat and wine. Ancient scriptures rarely forbade meat. Instead, they regulated it. Hunting and eating animals were completely acceptable practices, provided the hunters followed strict ritual protocols and offered the food to the deities first. Because these ancient texts actively normalized and ritualized meat eating, the mandate of a pure vegetarian is clearly not rooted in original scripture. And this isn't isolated to ancient history. Animal sacrifice and meat offerings are an integral part of daily worship across many regions today. At major religious sites, meat is routinely served to deities. You will find massive offerings of fish and mutton at the Kalighat Temple in Bengal, and right here at the Kamakhya Temple in Assam. There are even highly specific local traditions, like at the Munyandi Swami Temple in Tamil Nadu. Here, devotees offer massive pots of chicken and mutton biryani to the gods, which is then served out to worshippers as holy prasad. For millions of practicing Hindus right now, deep religious devotion and meat consumption comfortably coexist on the exact same plate. So if ancient texts permit it, and modern temples practice it, when did vegetarianism become the ultimate symbol of Hindu purity? The shift began around the 5th century BC. The rise of Jainism and Buddhism introduced strict philosophies of Ahimsa, the principle of nonviolence. This emerging ethical framework challenged the existing religious hierarchy. To counter this moral threat and maintain their social dominance, Hindu upper castes, particularly Brahmins and wealthy merchants, co-opted strict vegetarianism for themselves. It was heavily tied to economics. Maintaining a pure vegetarian diet, heavily supplemented by dairy, was an expensive privilege only the wealthy elite could afford. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar analyzed how food restrictions were weaponized. He noted dietary lines were drawn to isolate poorer communities who relied on cheap meat, specifically beef. By declaring those diets impure, the upper castes rigorously enforced the system of untouchability. Strict vegetarianism evolved primarily as a mechanism for economic class distinction and caste-based social control. Today, a Hindu's definition of a pure diet is dictated almost entirely by the geographic region they are born into. This map illustrates how coastal states with abundant, cheap seafood view fish as an absolute staple. Because of this geography, the vegetarian populations in places like Kerala and West Bengal dropped to just 2 and 3%. Compare that to the landlocked agricultural states in the north and west. Here, wheat and dairy are plentiful, resulting in the country's highest vegetarian populations, over 60% in states like Rajasthan and Haryana. The historical caste dynamics also remain highly visible. Government data shows that the vast majority of beef-eating Hindus belong to marginalized scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities. Dietary purity in India is an inheritance of geography and class structure. Yet, the historical weaponization of diet continues right now. Politicians selectively use beef consumption to stoke fear, incite violence, and polarize voters across the North Indian Hindu belt. Contrast that fear-mongering with the blatant political hypocrisy in the South and Northeast. In those regions, the exact same political parties will openly promise high-quality beef on their manifestos just to win local elections. Adopting a plant-based diet for animal welfare, environmental protection, or personal health is a deeply positive and powerful ethical decision. Ahimsa and vegetarianism are beautiful philosophical traditions, but weaponizing what sits on someone else's plate to claim moral superiority or spread political hatred is a modern manipulation, one that betrays the true, diverse history of Hinduism.